Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for what is the second of Second Harvest Heartland's Food for Thought Lunch and Learn series. My name is Patrick Martin. I'm a development officer here at Second Harvest Heartland, and I'll be serving as your trusty moderator for today's awesome conversation about child hunger. We so appreciate you taking the time out of your day for what's going to be a front row seat to the work of ending hunger across our 59 county region, both the work that Second Harvest Heartland is doing and more than 1,000 agencies and partner food shelves across the region as well, four of whom we're going to get an opportunity to meet today. And the topic is incredibly timely. 1 in 11 kids in Minnesota don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And that's a problem that's compounded when so many of them lose access to regular school meals over the summer. And with quality nutrition so core to a child's mental, emotional, physical development, ensuring that they have that stable access is top of mind for our organization and everybody you're going to meet today. So without further ado, looking forward to introducing you to each of them. So first, excited to introduce you to Andrea Bishop-Thomas, who is the Executive Director at Mount Olivet Lab School. First, Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. If you wouldn't mind just taking a minute to introduce yourself and the work of the lab school.
Sure. Thank you, Patrick, for having me today. I am Andrea Bishop-Thomas, and I am the Executive Director at Mount Olivet Lab School in St. Paul. We are actually housed currently at Mount Olivet Baptist Church on Central Avenue. It's in the Midway. And we primarily serve people of color. We're actually watching our demographic change quite a bit, where we have several ethnicities and backgrounds that actually come to our site, speaking many different languages. We are actually the first kids cafe in St. Paul. And we were established when 2 Hunger Fellows actually just kind of came into our site one day. So we were actually so excited about that. And what that has meant is that we have had children come to our site weekly for prepared meals. And for them, many of them, it has been probably the best meal that they have received during the week. And also during COVID, we saw quite a shift to becoming a food shelf. And we've been able to bundle meals to send home with children, and also bundle literacy activities so that our students wouldn't lose anything in their learning, but that they will also be able to receive good nutrition throughout the week.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to diving into that work a little more as we go along here. Also, very excited that we have Jason Viana joining us from the Open Door down in Dakota County. Thank you, Jason. Please take a minute to introduce yourself and Open Door.
Thanks, Patrick, for having me, and thanks for all the ways Second Harvest makes our work possible. My name is Jason Viana. I'm the Executive Director of the Open Door. We're a hunger relief organization in Dakota County. We served on average about 17,000 people each month in our community last year. We have a variety of programs. We've got a come and get it food shelf for those that have transportation and can get to us. And we have one of the largest mobile programs going on a given month. We make food available at more than 30 different locations around Dakota County, whether that's elementary school, a senior living community, or a low-income neighborhood. During the summer, we really expand our operations through pop-up produce distributions in low-income neighborhoods. We have 13 community gardens where folks grow their own food. And we have our mobile lunchbox program, which I know is of particular interest to this group, where we partner with this year with 5 school districts, and we deliver meals 5 days a week to 30 plus neighborhoods where kids don't have access during the summer. So basically we are volunteer run, and we do everything we can to get food to as many places as we can. I think it's worth noting that of the people that we served last year, 41% of them were children. So it's a very present need, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. Also excited to have with us Kelly Miller, who is the Director of the Department of Indian Work at Interfaith Mission of Greater St. Paul. Thank you for being here, Kelly. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and DIW.
My name is Kelly Miller. I'm the Director of Department of Indian Work. DIW partners with American Indian families to revitalize culture, education, and wellness. We include emergency services, American Indian Youth Enrichment. We have a diabetes prevention program. We are one of MDH's COVID community coordinators, and we serve over 900 families annually, and we did 70 years last fall. So happy to be here, and thanks.
Excellent. Congratulations on 70 years. That's fantastic. And we also have joining us Sean Morrison, who is the founder and executive director of Good in the Hood. Sean, thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Good in the Hood.
Sure. Thank you, Patrick, and good to be with you all. Good in the Hood, everybody asks me about the name, and I said it was going to be Good in the Neighborhood, but Mr. Rogers had that and tough competition, so we went with Good in the Hood. But it's worked well for us, and we pastored, my wife and I, for several years, and one of the convictions we had is how can we not just be in a community, but for a community? Good in the Hood allows us to do that, and so we kind of create a separate nonprofit, a charitable. And food and I'll say food security is one of the biggest needs in our community today, particularly for those who are children and even all the way through college. Those who once got free and reduced lunches don't get those in college. So we're really trying to make a difference. We're kind of all over the place because we have 33 pop-up food programs right now in the Twin Cities. We're at Metro State University, St. Thomas University, Hamlin, Hennepin Technical College, plus we're in 7 public schools. We're also in some churches and other places of need. But the key thing is to make food accessible. And we do have some other services too, and I'll just briefly mention those. We have a foot care service for those experiencing homelessness, where we have nurses provide foot care. We have a program called Shoe Away Hunger. It's where we bring shoes to shelters and schools, and any money that comes in does pay for groceries, thus Shoe Away Hunger. We have a side-by-side program, a youth program, and a holiday help, and we do several other services, but hunger relief is the catalyst. It brings people together. So we're really grateful to be able to do this in partnership with Second Harvest. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. We appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, we have Kelsey Litchfield, who is an amazing member of our Rockstar Child Hunger team. She's a child hunger specialist. And I think we'll start off with you, Kelsey. Kelsey, if you wouldn't mind just kind of introducing yourself a little bit, but then obviously Second Harvest work in this area is broad. So if you could share some of the major components of that work as well with us.
Yeah, happy to do that. So hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Litchfield. So I actually work at Second Harvest Heartland, the food bank. Currently a partner relations specialist working with a lot of our agency partners, but have been in the child hunger team here. And prior to that, I was actually working at 360 Communities, another agency partner of ours out of Burnsville, Minnesota, where I was working as a family support worker at Kaposia Elementary, a South St. Paul school, where I was running a small school food pantry, did a monthly food distribution, did SNAP outreach, and assisted in other meal program model improvement projects where I also saw child food insecurity really up close and personal. So it's really great to hear about all these great things our partners are doing to combat the issue. And you're right, we do a lot of work in child hunger, and it encompasses a lot of different areas. So first, of course, we support our food shelf partners and their work to feed children and families, like Sean and Kelly and Jason and Andrea, whether that's an actual food pantry distribution, mobile food program. We offer grants to partners and technical assistance, just increasing those connections between the networks so they're able to work together too with the school districts in their area. And we also really believe in investing in the school meal programs in the school districts as well. So making sure that those food and nutrition service departments are well equipped to be able to serve meals to students that are of well quality and nutritious. Sometimes it's a matter of just lacking the right equipment, the staffing. So we do have a great child hunger grant program that's been in operation for quite a few years, where we've worked with school districts as large as like Minneapolis and St. Paul to really small schools, charter schools, and rural districts from, as far south in our service area, Mankato up north to Hinckley, Finlayson. It's really broad where we're working. And we've seen schools do really cool things, whether that's improving efficiency in their school meal programs, like designing grab and go breakfast models that are more attractive to high schoolers that like to eat with their friends in the main atrium because there's stigma of eating in the cafeteria and they don't want to miss out on social time. Or schools need to invest in appropriate equipment so they can incorporate more scratch cooking, so they can actually use health and fresh ingredients in their meal programs, because that's what the community wants. So we really have seen schools been able to do great things with our grant program to be able to feed the community to reduce child food insecurity. We also have a really great arm of our work in child hunger where we work with school support staff like social workers, cultural liaisons, even school nurses, pretty much any of those support staff that have those high touch points with families and community that are interested in information about SNAP. So that's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And we have a rock star team at Second Harvest Heartland of outreach specialists that actually will hop on the phone with folks in the community to help with application assistance. So our child hunger team has been really great in making sure that our partners on the ground, whether those are agency partners in food shelves or in school districts, those support staff are equipped with the information about SNAP to be able to share with families across our service area. And then lastly, we also do a lot of advocacy to improve reducing child food insecurity through programs and policy. So obviously, universal school meals was a big topic this year, but also the child tax credit and SNAP and PBT. We know these programs have huge impact in feeding children, but they're also barriers to access, and they can only provide a limited amount of help to only so many families. So it's really important that we continue to advocate for strengthening these programs because they really complement to the other work that we're doing in hunger relief. And then lastly, I just also wanted to mention that another arm of our work that helps reduce child hunger in Minnesota is our Kitchen Coalition program. So this is the distribution of prepared meals that go out to children and families through schools and agencies. So these, again, are our partners that have really high touch points in community that are seeing child food insecurity up close and personal and seeing an opportunity to get prepared meals out to families that really need it. So like I said, we have a lot of different ways that we're trying to reduce child food insecurity, but we really depend on the work of our partners.
Excellent. But that is a lot of moving parts, and thank you and your team again for keeping that machine spinning. And just briefly, you had touched on it, but to make sure we highlight it. So passage of universal school meals, so it's obviously a huge step forward. So I guess just briefly, what was the impact of that? And the problem is certainly not solved. So I guess what need remains?
Yeah, so the impact of universal school meals passing, so that means that all students in Minnesota can now receive a free school lunch, is really huge. So for me, that just means that kids are no longer going to have to worry about the money that's in their lunch account while they're sitting in the class. You know, they're going to be able to think about what they're learning and then just eat the food that's being served to them and not worried about, you know, going into debt. They should be concentrating on what's important, their education. And this is also going to have a huge impact, positive impact on school food and nutrition service departments. They'll have less financial and administrative burdens, so they'll be able to focus their limited staff time on cooking and serving food to kids rather than chasing families down for payments and filling out those forms. This also will prevent school lunch shaming so that students, you know, will less have to think about, you know, not going through the line and, you know, having to go through that experience of getting the meal that they don't necessarily want. And they'll just all be able to get the meal that they like. So this really will have an impact in feeding our community, but it is important that we do continue to invest in not only school meal programs, but also in the work that our partners are doing, because we continue to see record visits at our food shelf partners across the board. I'm sure that we'll all talk about it today. You know, the cost of living, the cost of food is making the situation really hard for children and families. So we can only depend on free school meals so much, especially when we're talking about outside of school time, the weekends and after school, summer coming up. So that's why it's so important that we have partners in hunger relief to be able to help us out here as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, so excited to have so many of those frontline agency and organizational partners here. So we'll jump kind of right into the work that we're supporting out there in the communities. So to start off, it would be helpful to kind of level set what is the landscape of community need in terms of child hunger that we're living in right now. And maybe it'd be helpful to first ground that in what the trends are that got us to this point. So Sean, if you don't mind kind of teeing us off here, the pandemic obviously had a huge impact on food insecurity in our region. On top of that, we've had closures of grocery stores in neighborhoods like North Minneapolis. I guess from your and Good in the Hood's perspective, how have the past several years impacted children and families in the urban neighborhoods that your organization specializes in serving? What does that look like for your work?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And not to be Captain Obvious, but the dollar's not going as far as it used to. And so that's a huge challenge. And then when you think of post-COVID, we've seen, of course, less benefits available to families in need. The government was subsidizing quite a bit. And so people start to depend on that, both practically and even emotionally. So this hits them in the fact that they can't buy as many groceries, but then their emotional well-being gets affected by this too. And that's kind of that other, thing that comes alongside this is, we've all seen people, and for proverbially speaking, who can't, they're hungry, but they can hardly emotionally lift the spoon to their mouth. They've lost hope. And I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. So now their motivation is diminished. And I think that's another factor in this whole thing. So, COVID, for a while gave us benefits just to get us through, but then there's that other side. And I think we're on the other side, not that COVID's completely over, but the benefits are. And with that too, though, there were some other things that happened that I think that are also related to hunger relief. We all know that daycare has gone up in price. Not only has food gone up, and anybody who's tried to buy eggs, you all know this, but daycare, transportation is more difficult for families in need because they're often dependent on public transportation. So you're trying to get to a food shelf, much less a store, and you might have 3 or 4 children or however many a person has in the family. And do you leave them at home alone? Do you try to find daycare? Do you bring them with you? These are all challenges, and it makes the climb an uphill one that's very steep. And I think that's the thing we have to figure out. And I appreciate, groups like Jason who are doing mobile. I think that's so important that we find ways to bring it to the people, take it to them with an approach. We went with pop-ups to bring it into the general vicinity, but whether it's pop-ups or mobile, it's very important. How do we get food to people? Create easy access is the key. And I think the other piece that's maybe related to this, there's so many delays now in everything. So somebody's trying to get their car fixed, and you might have to wait weeks if there's a part that's on back order. I'm having to deal with that with our program trucks. We try to get something repaired and it takes a month. And so that affects our ability to deliver food. It also affects those coming to get food because they now have to find alternate transportation. These are sort of those hidden things that people don't realize that come along with this. So there's a longer wait time. There's just a trickle down effect for everything that's happening right now, and it affects hunger because we try to eat, most of us, 3 times a day, if not more. And now they have to make choices. Are they going to just, use types of food that maybe are not as nutritional? Are they going to have to take shortcuts, things that store longer so that they don't have to go to the store as often? These are things that, are there. Culturally specific food might be harder to get and maybe more expensive. You got transportation costs that get food to our area from point A to point B, and that affects the stores and affects everybody, including food shelves, when we have to pay more. And so really appreciate and want to do a shout out to Second Harvest. You've been really working hard to make this better for us with grants and just, cohorts and so forth. And I really appreciate you because we couldn't do it without you guys. And I'm really grateful, and the team of people that you've brought to the table here has really helped us, which is helping the people that we're serving. So thank you for that. And it's made a big impact. Our work, just to answer that last question quick, we've decided to open up more food programs. So we, last year, were about 25 programs. Now we're at 33. And including North Minneapolis, we just opened up a couple more. And so that's how we're addressing it, but it takes a community to serve a community. So we're just doing our part, and I'm grateful for all the people, the heroes that are on this call today, because each and every one is doing something significant to make a difference. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, and again, thank you all for giving us such incredible work to be able to go out and support. So goes both ways. Well, and kind of along those lines, to some of the points that John brought up, Jason, obviously inflation, reduced nutrition benefits through programs like SNAP, the turbulent economy have pushed so many families across our region right to the brink. And that includes in suburbs that many people may kind of perceive in their heads to be more affluent. So I guess what kind of child hunger, or what levels are you seeing in the suburbs today? And how does that suburban context shape how you're thinking?
Yeah, great question, Patrick. And before I answer, I just want to kind of echo what Sean said. some of the help that we get from Second Harvest, you don't always think about this, but bringing folks together like Sean and I and Kelly and Andrea, just knowing you're not alone, because these are really big challenges. And so we appreciate that, and just the partnerships and the ideas how to do it better. I mean, when Kelsey worked at Kaposia, she was running a food distribution. Well, our organization's now picked up what fell off during COVID. And so we're able to help each other see the gaps. But in the suburbs, it's the second verse, same as the first in some ways. And we're seeing the same things Sean's seeing and that you're seeing in your life. It's gotten harder. Things are more expensive. Housing has gone up, healthcare, everything has gone up. So it's gotten more expensive. And then people took help away. And one of the things I think we learned during the pandemic was that when we make food easier to get, it helps everybody. There were so many programs dedicated to it. And as they've been removed, we've seen that impact. I mean, we just expanded our food shelf. We got a new building, and I don't have an appointment available for 6 weeks. The demand is significant, but I do want to bring a point up, because I know the statewide food shelf numbers came out this year and it was an all-time high. It's two part of the story. So in the suburbs, I can't say that need is at an all-time high because we have a 6-week wait. I think because of the investments that we've made, we have the greatest capacity to help in the history of hunger relief in Minnesota. And so many generous folks have donated and invested in hunger relief. We've made more opportunities. I mean, we were feeding 7,000 people a month before the pandemic, and we're doing 17,000 now. A lot of those folks needed help before the pandemic. I mean, the suburbs are a little different because people, the most common conversation I have with folks is, wait, you need help in Egan and you need help in Lakeville. But the double-edged sword of that is, because it's not top of mind, and because the percentages of folks that need help aren't as apparent, there's not as much help. So in our summer meals program, for example, in Lakeville, there's only like 11% of students in Lakeville that are registered as needing help. It's probably closer to 20. But they don't have any kitchens open this summer for students in summer learning. It's just not top of mind. And so one of the great parts of the pandemic was, we had 60,000 people come to us for the first time in the last 3 years that had never needed help before. So that created an awareness. But it's shining a light on how hard it is. Sometimes federal programs can become like the poverty Olympics. Like, you have to have a lot of people that need help or you can't get help, and it's harder to get the message out. And so we're serving more people than ever before. And it's, I don't know, I can go on a rant about the suburbs and how challenging it is, but we're also one of 5 organizations in Dakota County that provide food support. Second Harvest only has 5 partners outside of Loaves and Fishes down here. And I think last time I checked in Hennepin, there's 55 plus. And so they're just, our organization has grown in 14 years to be one of the largest food shelves in the state, not because we're putting other food shelves out of business, but because there is no existing infrastructure for poverty in the suburbs. So I'll stop there. There's demand is up here, but there was also so much unmet demand that we're still not keeping pace.
Absolutely, and that's such a great point, to look at the entire landscape of need and kind of this tidal wave that seems to come at you. But if you're not identifying and addressing it at the individual and family level in an effective way, you're not really making headway. And to that point, Andrea, so hunger and its impact on lives obviously isn't always visible. It's not always the stereotype that people might be picturing. So how does Mount Olivet Lab School leverage kind of the whole variety of programs that you have, food related or no, to be able to connect, especially kids who are hungry, with those broader resources? How are you kind of bringing the whole lab school to bear in that work?
You are right, Patrick. It's not always visible. One thing I like to use, analogy I like to use, is that, if you see someone in a nice coat or something, it's easy for someone to get something that's a hand-me-down and it looks great, but, unless someone tells you that it's a hand-me-down, you don't know it. Hunger shows up in a different way, or nutrition insufficiency shows up in a different way. It may show up in behavior. It may show up in mood. It may show up in inability to concentrate. So when we get kids that come to our program, whether it's a referral from a school or from a housing complex or from any other place, what we do is we actually try to address the needs of not only the child, not only just the hunger, but the needs of the entire family. Whether they come through our tutoring program, or if we do an arts week, We know that that child has to have sufficient nutrition just to be able to function properly, just to be able to concentrate. We may actually get referrals through community partnerships, even through some of our volunteers. They may work in other schools and they may actually encourage families to come. We've had social workers come from other schools. And I guess when it really comes down to it, we have been established in our community for so long and we're trusted in the place where we are. Also just our connection with Second Harvest. And that's been, I guess, a steadfast, long partnership. And so we have Second Harvest to credit with that, just the food, the meals, the ability to raise funding for the work that we do. I don't know that we could survive without that. So it's really important to us and it allows us to address those needs. For us, what it looks like is, again, being trusted and what a family can expect from us. Some of the words that I jotted down were compassion, dignity. For us, it is so important that there be dignity because what we have found is that, especially during COVID, we've had families who never, ever thought that they would be in the position of having to come to a food shelf coming through. So it's so important to us that they are treated gently. And it's not just about the food, it's about the basic needs because we have found that there have been families who have had to make decisions about whether or not they're going to eat, whether or not they're going to be able to purchase medications, clean their houses. And so there's a really fine balance there, confidentiality, and then being culturally appropriate with food, and also speaking their language. We've got so many different languages going on. I've never been more thankful for Google Translator and a daughter that speaks French fluently. And even with the kids, the children, you know, she speaks their language. And for us, having a specific kids zone set up where the kids can go out even during our summer produce market, go to their own zone and do shopping in their own little area. So we do so many different things to make families feel welcome, but most importantly, being able to address their nutritional needs.
Fantastic. Well, and I love that you center that word in trust, and it's obviously so critical across all the programming that's on. And I know Kelly, as important as meeting the needs of hungry children is meeting their needs in a reflective and affirming way that they can resonate with. So I guess how does that shape Department of Indian Work and Interfaith Actions programming with the American Indian community specifically? What does that mean for American Indian people to be served in a way that's culturally?
Yeah, all of our programming is designed for the American Indian community, but we also we get input from our community members. So we started as a food shelf in the basement of an old church with a few shelves and some cans. And to meet an unmet need after the Indian Relocation Act. And now we were the first super shelf that is culturally specific for the American Indian community in the state of Minnesota. Super Shelf is an initiative between the University of Minnesota, Health Partners, Valley Outreach, and the Food Group, and they transform food shelves into a more welcoming, client-centered, and respectful environment to access healthy food. So we are literally set up like a mini grocery store, and we put the focus on family from all of the programming that we offer from our food shelf and having that kid space, like Andrea said, to walking through the food shelf and making sure that there's culturally appropriate food, not just for our community, but for other communities that we serve as well. That we have access, our families have access to wild rice and bison and walleye, a lot of the foods that maybe they're not able to go and harvest themselves. I'm not sure if I've heard a lot of people say that, hey, I used to go set nets. It's a lot of work, but it's not usually typical that urban American Indians are able to go and do. What else? I think of our youth programming. We have a part of our youth programming that we bring in food and culture as well, and to just talk about the history of food, the importance of growing it, and how to, cut out some of those not as healthy foods. I mean, we all love them. We still offer them here, but they're not healthy for you. We have been a part of our community for over 70 years, and we are a trusted source for our community, for them to come to us and not only ask for help for food, but hey, I need help with daycare, I need help with rent, or you just go to shop in our clothing closet. Hey, my kid went through a growth spurt, I need some new clothes. So all of our programming is really designed for the whole family, and it's for our community. And I think it's really important as well that our youth and our families see representation, because representation matters. So coming to a food shelf that is culturally specific for you, right? You walk in and there may be one last week we had some powwow music playing, and this lady was like, makes me want to get down and dance, and it just brings up a whole different mood. And we really want to be that safe place that our families can come to for help. And that's the work we're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, well, and it's tremendous work, absolutely. And to stay on time here, I wanted to open this up to kind of a broader discussion as well, because obviously we live in a very different world than we did in 2019. And I guess I'll open this to the full group. So the network of organizations and programs like yours that are meeting the needs of hungry children is really broad and diverse. There's obviously a lot of. So what does collaboration look like between frontline organizations in the hunger fighting space? I guess how have we seen that evolve in the last few years, and where do you see that going moving forward?
I can just give a couple things that are, but there's others I want to give time to share. Collaboration, of course, works when you can share resources. That's if we've got extra, can we share with another food shelf? What I think really helps though is when you pull people together, groups that are doing things, and we as nonprofits often lead with compassion because we have big hearts, but we need to have big minds too. We have to lead with wisdom and support it with compassion. Otherwise, our sustainability goes away. So I think pulling us together and sharing ideas and what's working, what are some of the trends, all of those things really makes a difference. And we want to do this better, and we want to continually improve, not get stuck in a way of doing things. So I think that's one of the areas collaboration makes a big difference.
Thoughts on that one?
I think Sean's answer was great. For me, it's always like, how do I get better at what I'm doing? How do I make it better for the people that we serve? What are some tried and true things? What are some cutting edge things that are happening? For us, it's like intake. How do we get rid of all the paper, but not have to pay a fortune to do it? Yeah.
And Jason, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, no, I think, Sean and Andrea have pointed out really good things, but collaboration is sometimes support. We're all facing an uphill challenge. There's more demand than any of us can meet, and to do it smartly and do it effectively, but maintaining your compassion is critical. And for us, we only do food. And so collaboration for us has looked a lot like bringing other partners in. Like we've got a local health clinic that comes alongside our produce distributions and does health screenings. And we've had opportunities with the public health department to come and share information, or just, we always think about our partners because it's like your house, right? If you provide a meal, people show up. And if they're already there, what else can you do? We can talk about the difficult thing. And so collaboration is making sure that we're not being redundant, because we don't have that luxury. We have to be smart and efficient. And I think that's one of the good things that's come out of the pandemic, is I've seen a lot more collaboration among organizations. We have a tendency sometimes to, keep our head down and really get sucked into the day to day. But again, not to toot Second Harvest horn too much, but I mean, they have done a really good job of creating collaborative spaces and reminding us that it needs to happen, because I've learned things from numerous other food shelves and shared ideas as well.
And just in general, a question is structurally the way that we deliver, especially to kids throughout the pandemic with school closures, pop-up events, things like that. I guess operationally, what do you see changing coming out of the pandemic that you think is just woven into the fabric of serving nutrition support to families moving forward?
I will jump in on that one. So we were able to purchase a vehicle. We call it our IndigiVan, and now we offer home delivery to anybody that's needing it. So it's, if you have 4 kids at home, 3 of them are sick and you don't want to lug them to the food shelf, great, give us a call. You can do an online order online, submit it to us, and we will deliver your food to you. So just making sure that food is accessible was a big part, especially during the pandemic with kids being home from school, with food shelves closing. I just think accessibility is really important, especially to our families, to ensure that families have that access to healthy food.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I'll add to what Kelly said. I think at the bottom line, one of the great lessons of the last 3 years is that you have to be willing to try, fail, and try again. And you also have to be willing to listen. Because as much, I mean, if you just think about anyone on this call, the number of ways your daily routine changed because of any number of variables, it keeps changing, right? So there's nothing that we do that we can't be willing to undo. And so whether it's getting a vehicle or getting a different vehicle or even changing the times that are available, Sean mentioned, access. It's making food accessible in an easy manner, and that involves a lot of flexibility and creativity.
And
I
I
don't,
think,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
and I think also just being able to share the things that we're talking about and the things that we've learned with like the county, because, I've sat in on some meetings and, even as they're trying to reimagine what accessibility looks like, just being bold enough to go in and share the things that we know and the things that we've learned with them. Yeah.
I'll just add one thing too. Second Harvest, you've done a great job of helping us to do what we do well by giving us the support we need, and where there needs to be structure, but you've not burdened us in a lot of red tape, and I think that's huge. But I think also there's a part of food, bringing food to people where there's the dignity. I think both Andrea and Kelly and Jason all mentioned that. And I'll use Kelly as an example, doing a superfood shelf where it feels like a regular place. Nobody wants to feel like they have to walk the walk of shame of, here I am, I'm poor, feel sorry for me. They all want to be able to give their children good things. They all want to experience life where there's abundance. And just because they're poor doesn't mean they're ignorant or they don't care about those things. They do, and they need to feel like they can have a nice future too, and also a nice moment. And I think those are sometimes so important that we don't just do for people, we do with people.
Absolutely, thank you, Sean. And along those lines, I know Kelsey, if you want to jump in, feel free, because you brought this up earlier, but serving children in particular who are hungry, and it was mentioned earlier, it's not just little kids, that's all the way up through. And the potential for the stigma that could surround needing food support at a time when social anxiety is high for kids in school. So I guess how does that change the approach or the sensitivities around providing nutrition support to kids in particular? How does that influence your work? Anybody?
Yeah, I can jump in quickly. I think that I found in my experience, there was no one size fits all when it comes to food distribution models, when it comes to ages. So yeah, like I mentioned, when I was working with high schoolers, I found that the social aspect of being with their friends was really important when it came to eating. So it was really important that we brought the food directly to them. So the distribution, where does it need to be? It needs to be where they're socializing. And then for our youngest kids, are they physically able to carry the weekend food bag, in their backpack? And so again, it's just going back to that accessibility piece, like a lot of the folks on the call have already mentioned, making the food program actually work for the participant, even if it's a child as small as, a kindergartner that's bringing home a weekend food bag to the teenager that's bringing home food, and their biggest concern is, getting made fun of or teased or bullied.
And again, thank you to has been brought up earlier, approaching the work with trust and compassion and destigmatizing need for food support generally. I think is a really promising and inspiring direction that I've seen. at least my time in food banking, and you're all on that. And I know, so kind of to take things into a landing here a little bit. So Kelsey, our Summer Child Hunger Initiative here at Second Harvest is fast approaching. It is incredible. We're already coming up on summer, thank gosh. So what should folks be keeping an eye out for out in the community? How can they engage in that?
Yeah, so yeah, summer is an exciting time, obviously. You know, the weather starts to warm up, we're all getting excited. But as we mentioned, it is like the hungriest time for kids being outside of school, especially with, like we've mentioned, the cost of living right now. We do expect to see anticipated need and just more, you know, straight on, I think, of the hunger relief system. But we do have over 1,000 partners in our service area. We have over 58 counties that we work in. So there are a lot of ways to get involved. One is just taking what you learned today about hunger and the resources in your community and spreading the word. So there are food shelves in your area that you can volunteer with, you can engage with, you can talk to. And if you know anyone in your community that might be struggling or looking to get support or also just get engaged and involved with, you know, talk about what you learned today and share information about the food shelf in your community. I also want to talk about the summer food service program, which is a really exciting resource for anybody in our community. So school districts, libraries, rec centers, parks, and more will be serving free meals for all kids throughout the summer. It's available for any kid 18 and under, no registration required. You simply show up and receive a meal. And the more people that participate in the program, the stronger that is. So if you or anyone you know have kids that could use a meal, need some time out in community, check with your school district, check with your local library, and participate in the summer food service program. And that's just a couple ways that you can get involved this summer in helping reduce child food insecurity.
Fantastic. And again, just on behalf of Second Harvest Heartland, on behalf of everybody that's joining us here live today, everybody that's going to watch the recording, I just want to thank all of our panelists again so much for being here. Kelsey, Kelly, Sean, Andrea, Jason, the work these folks are doing out on the front lines of the community is helping countless neighbors. A lot of neighbors that are walking by you every single day and you have no idea. It is so appreciated by us and the I will say for everybody, there'll be a recording of this available. If you have any questions about anything you've heard here today, please reach out to Second Harvest Heartland. We'll make sure to get you connected with these folks or the right resources to learn more to Kelsey's point. And stay tuned for the next installments in the Food for Thought series. We'll have another event coming up in July. Some amazing topics at a really critical time. So again, on behalf of the team, thank you to our panelists. Thank you for taking the time to be here today and enjoy the sunshine.